question.
Yeah.
And it's two trains of thoughts here. Who determines when a song becomes pop? The audience or the record company and the whole industry behind that? Are we determining what's pop, or are they determining? And there's two different contexts I think I'm also posing that question in. So one is obviously the word pop is short for popular. So are we determining, is this song popular? And then on the other side, on the other side of that, in the 90s, it was very unpopular for Black artists to cross over. I mean, underground wise, like, of course, on the surface level, I don't think as much as, the general public was aware, but a lot of artists, Black artists that came out that started crossing over, like MC Hammer, they suffered when they crossed over, because then we kind of pulled back from them because we felt like, oh, we've lost our ownership over this artist. Now they're making music for everybody, which is ridiculous now to think of it now. But so there's another context to think of that as in, when does a song become, for example, Boyz II Men? When did we decide that Boyz II Men became a pop group? That type of thing. So I'm going to start with the first train of thought. Who do you believe decides whether a song becomes popular? Is it us, or are the record companies determining that for us?
I know Justin Bieber has been critical about the Grammys categorizing him in the best pop male category. So you have the highest industry award body saying, when a record is out, we determine that that's a pop record or that's an R&B record. And if a label is gearing and selling a record towards getting the Grammys, which is almost like the crowning achievement, then if the Grammys are saying, oh, Bieber, this is pop, and Bieber saying, no, I'm an R&B artist, and they're like, yeah, this is pop. It almost gives you a sense that the Recording Academy are the ones who are now putting them in the category. The labels then are submitting them into those categories, into the popular category. And if you are being brought out, it's not the stigma as it was before. But Justin Timberlake comes out with a record now, even if it's produced by Timbaland, he will still, in a way, they will probably still put him in the pop category, because it means he can be accessible across multiple services, radio and streaming services, and reach a wider audience, as opposed to narrowing him into R&B. So I would assume that it's between the Recording Academy and the labels who would say, this is what we're trying to sell. We were trying to sell you a pop artist, but we won't label it ourselves because we don't want to pigeonhole them. But ultimately, when the Grammys come out...
Thing you brought up, an interesting thing I want to comment on is, because you said that Justin Bieber and even a Justin Timberlake will say, I'm an R&B artist. But does the audience think that Justin Bieber is R&B? Do they think that Justin Timberlake is R&B? Because I'm very curious to that. If we were to ask the audience if they believe that Justin Bieber were R&B or pop, I think majority would say pop. And because when you listen to his music, it's R&B, but it's a watered down R&B. So I think real true R&B fans wouldn't gravitate towards Justin Bieber. So I think he's a little delusional in that fact. But you pretty much answered the question. Yes, I believe that the companies are determining what is pop and popular. And I also believe that they're putting the money behind artists to make their songs popular. There's an artist named Camila Cabello, I believe, and I like her.
Senorita. No, she had also, what was her big song?
I love that song, Senorita.
Hosanna, no,
With Young
Hosanna,
Thug. Oh
Havana,
no, that's not
Havana,
Havana. Yeah,
Havana, no, no,
Havana.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that song with Young Thug. I love that. I actually really like Camilla, so hopefully she's watching. I'm not dissing you, Camilla. But now her latest album, if I'm reading the reports correctly, I think it debuted with, I believe, 23,000 copies sold.
Wow.
Now, if you look at the
Oh, in the
quality of the
first
video
day or the first week?
in the first week,
Wow, I remember when Eminem
and
would have a million. Okay.
right, and I could be off a little bit, guys. But I believe that I just was looking at that earlier, and I was kind of It's funny because you see her everywhere. She's on Saturday Night Live. She's performing. She's got this big thing on TikTok where she's got this big layout, this big performance thing. And I could be wrong about those numbers, guys. But I'm just saying that even if I am slightly wrong, I think that and if I am, you'll never see this because we're gonna edit it. I'm joking. But no, she had, if I'm not mistaken, 23,000 units sold. Yet if a black artist sells that, there you think about that, when we have artists that sell like that, we're not given Saturday Night Live. We're not given all these different platforms and outlets to build our records to be
Mm,
popular. You know what I'm saying? And so she's given all these different opportunities to promote her music, and that's what she's selling. So it's really kind of a slap in the face to black artists that are selling the same,
mm.
and they're not getting any push behind their projects. Um, and again, like I said, those songs are in heavy rotation, but when you look at the charts, her songs are starting to kind of like peak at like 38 and 23 on the Billboard Top 100. So, um, going back to your original, comment. Yes, I do believe that the record companies do
Mm.
decide that. Now, back in the '90s, when a Boys to Men, they went from their first album to the second album. They had the "I'll Make Love to You." I know that's not one of your favorite songs from Boys to Men,
Bending knees on
but
bending knees. Mhm.
yeah, Bend the Knee was your favorite. But for whatever reason, people consider that album very pop and corny now. Or I won't say now, let's talk about in the 90s. It was a big hit, but once it became such a massive hit in the way it was, people kind of put it in that pop realm. Same thing with Tony Braxton. They kind of put her in that pop realm where they was just like, okay,
Yeah, when
Unbreak
she
My
came out with
Heart.
Umbrella, yeah, yeah, because
Yeah, it's
yeah,
just like
that was
now
just.
they get pigeonholed as a pop artist, and they're really R&B artists. So who's making that decision? Is it the audience, or are the labels saying you're now a pop artist and we're going to treat you as such, and we're going to
Yeah, but I would think that, because I was very always mindful of when Jodeci would do, when they came out with
lately?
no, the after the show,
Oh,
or even their second album, and it was very much street and R&B.
yeah,
But I remember when Boys to Men came out with "I'll Make Love to You" and "On Bended Knee" and "Waters Run Dry," it was it seemed more accessible to a wider audience. And so as a label, you're like, okay, we can market this type of music to more people, adults and across the genre, because it seems more accessible. It's not different now, where hip hop, doesn't matter how bad it is what that is the popular music. And
right.
but back in those days, there was a very big distinction between what Jodeci was putting out, what a Boys to Men were putting out. But even
Right.
the R&B groups, Rift, Nitty was green from Rift, said,
Yeah.
we wanted to be Jodeci. Even though we sounded like Boys to Men, we've realized that in the clubs and in the hoods and the streets, we weren't getting the respect that we wanted to be like
That's a
Jodeci.
good example too, because Riff was not really widely accepted by Black audiences, because when you listen to that first album, it's very pop.
Yeah, I loved it.
And
And it was,
yeah,
yeah,
I loved it too.
yeah.
And not just the hip hop soul era, also like artists like Luther Vandross. Throughout the '80s, he did R&B, but then when he did like Power of Love," which was a big pop hit,
Yeah.
people started kind of like drifting away from Luther, feeling like he's kind of getting away from his roots. Peabo Bryson put out that that Aladdin song.
A whole new world, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, people started like, okay, that's a little pop. So in that case, I'm thinking the audience, especially the Black audience, has decided, okay, look, you're getting a little too out there. But I'm glad we had this conversation because I think that it's a very different world now. Like music wise, like you said, you don't have to necessarily change your music to be pop now. You don't have to
Yeah.
water down too much. You had the scissors and you know, several artists that do very street records, very you know, honest and explicit records, and they still fit in that mainstream pop lane, and they're
Mm.
celebrated alongside the Taylor Swifts and et cetera. And you actually see the Taylor Swifts now using, being more explicit, being more, edgier in their material, trying to match the same energy. So it's a different world now, but it's just an interesting conversation
I mean,
about.
people were complaining that Bruno Mars was stealing our culture, and it's like, well, even if um, that he grew up on that type of on New Jack Swing and soul
Right.
music, and that's what he loves. And yes, he may not be black, Polynesian Asian as a from Hawaii, but that's the music. So he's not thinking, oh, people like Michael McDowell, is it McDowell from the Doobie Brothers or Hall and Oates? They that was the music they loved, and it wasn't as if they went in Elvis, okay, they went in Elvis who got these great black records and re-sang them to make money out of them. They love the songs generally, and they're writing the songs. They're not hiring in. I remember when Madonna did her R&B album, and she got Dallas Austin and Babyface to do some tracks for her. Human Nature, I think, and then Babyface did
Take a
what's
bow.
Take a
Take
Bow.
a bow.
Yeah, I
I
love that. That was the only album of Madonna I
I
bought.
like that.
That was her only album that I bought. Human Nature and Take a Bow and all that stuff. But then did she become R&B? She was still a pop artist, even
Yeah.
though she was
Well, I
singing
think that's why
R&B.
people are mad because they can float back and forth. They can do that, but we can't do that because if we float back and forth, our career's over because our audience are going to abandon us. So I won't
R.
say our
Kelly
because I'm not
managed it
an
though
artist, but
when after he did he was still able to go continually sell over 4 million, and the benchmark for R&B albums when generally 3 million. We won't
what
necessarily.
pop album has R. Kelly done?
No, he was able to after Bump and Grind, and even though that became a massive hit across the board, he still stayed in his lane, and his albums were still going
Oh, that's what you're saying. Oh, okay.
quadruple platinum. Um, People like yeah, but as you said, if you then start to make music, because he tried to do that after his case, try to do a more sort of a gospel stuff and change, let me do models. I believe I can fly stuff,
Mhm.
and people were like, "No, what's this, man? We want the nasty man. We we want the
Right, right. Well,
we
they
want the
keep
Pop
pulling us
Piper."
back. You want to.
And so he went, "Okay, well, let me go back and do Ignition and do
Hmm.
stuff like that." So, unfortunately, as I said, you do need us to stay in our lane and hope that the song crosses boundaries and stuff. People might consider "You Know What's Up" as a pop track because it's even though it had its beat, but because it became very popular, it's quite easy to fall out of love with it early and says, "Man, I'm tired of this
But
track,
the
man."
problem with the staying in the lane thing, though, is okay. You take a Trina Darby.
Mm,
He doesn't just do R&B. Like he can do all kinds of things
mm,
and have success in different lanes.
mm,
So why should he just have to do "Wishing Well" or whatever? And that's not even really an R&B song, but
mm,
it's kind of like pigeonholing someone into something. I mean, I think R. Kelly's proven that he can do pretty much any genre. It's
mm,
just that I don't. I mean, he could probably do rock if he wanted to, or at least
mm,
write a rock song. I don't know that anybody would allow him to go in that direction. But
mm,
with the with the white counterpart artists. I'm not gonna make this a big race thing, guys, but understand with certain artists, like Madonna, she can reinvent herself and kind of take from this culture and take from that genre and take from this and just keep,
Yeah,
picking off of different things
she did
and
stuff with Timberland, didn't she? I remember
right.
that.
And I like that album too, Hard Candy. But she can do that. She who knows? I think the only thing I haven't seen Madonna do is rock. So, but yeah, there's certain artists that they can just kind of float in and out of things and stuff like that. Just like Justin Timberlake did a hip hop country album, his last album. So it's like, but we're not able to do that. So I think with the thing with the Bruno Mars and the Justin Timberlakes is that whenever our artists, because Tank has tried to do an album like Justin Timberlake, he did like a throwback album with that, and he was angry. He had this big. Once the album came out, it didn't sell, and he had this big blowout on Twitter, blaming his fans for not buying his album. And
What?
he said, "Y'all always tell me to do something different, and when I do something different, you don't support it and you don't buy it. Where are my fans at?" This big old tirade. He done deleted it. You probably guys can Google it. You can find it. Tank went off on y'all, but but I understand that too because I mean I'm a songwriter. I write all kinds of genres. Like I mean I will. I keep talking about being a songwriter, guys. You will hear some of my music soon. I'm just not one of those people you kind of place in a little box, and he only does
Mm.
R&B songs. So that's why it's hard to market something like what I do. But with Tank, he realized that yeah, they just want you to be the nasty man. They just want you to sing those nasty songs, or they want you to be, the begging, please don't go guy.
Oh, is that his?
And they
That's
don't
his.
want to
Okay.
hear the experimental stuff. They don't want to hear the up-tempo stuff. So anyway, this is getting long-winded, guys. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. I can go on for hours, guys. But anyway, let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Who decides what is pop, the audience, or the corporations, the record companies, the media, the industry? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. I'm sure you have some interesting thoughts. Catch you next time on Can We Talk R&B podcast. Me and Nnamdi are signing off. Thank you.
Yeah.